Imagine you're the Prime Minister of Denmark. It's August 2019. You're sipping coffee in Copenhagen, probably planning some nice, boring Nordic policy stuff. Then your phone buzzes. It's the President of the United States. Hey, want to sell Greenland? You laugh. Obviously, this is a joke, right? Greenland isn't for sale. It's not a used car. It's a semi-autonomous territory with 57,000 people living on the world's largest island. But Donald Trump wasn't joking. He was dead serious. And when Denmark politely said no thanks, Trump canceled a state visit and called the whole thing nasty. The world laughed. The memes were glorious. Twitter exploded. Late-night comedians had a field day. But here's the thing nobody wanted to admit. Trump wasn't entirely crazy. Fast forward to 2025. Guess what? The conversation is back. Greenland is being called Alaska 2.0, the deal of the century that could reshape global power, unlock trillions in resources, and give America a strategic chokehold on the Arctic. Today, we're going to break down whether buying Greenland is the dumbest idea in history or the smartest move America never made. We'll look at the money, the minerals, the military bases, and the melting ice that's about to turn this frozen rock into the most valuable real estate on Earth. And before you think this is just crazy American imperialism, let me remind you, this isn't the first time someone tried to buy Greenland. Not even close. Buckle up. This is going to be cold, expensive, and surprisingly logical. 1. The Alaska Playbook, why this sounds familiar. Let's rewind 158 years. It's 1867. America just fought a brutal civil war. The country is broke, exhausted, and divided. The economy is in shambles. And Secretary of State William Seward walks into Congress with a proposal that sounds absolutely insane. Gentlemen, I'd like to buy Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. The reaction? Absolute outrage. They called it Seward's folly. They called it Seward's icebox. They said he was an idiot for buying a frozen wasteland full of polar bears, ice, and absolutely nothing of value. Newspapers mocked him mercilessly. Political cartoons portrayed him as a fool throwing away taxpayer money on a useless glacier. One congressman literally said, "We already have enough ice in the north. What we need is tropical land." But let's do the math, because this is where it gets interesting. 7.2 million in 1867 is about 150 million in today's money. Not pocket change, but not exactly breaking the bank either. What did America get for that investment? 586,000 square miles of territory, twice the size of Texas. Gold rushes that generated billions in wealth. Oil reserves that have produced over 18 billion barrels worth hundreds of billions. Fish stocks worth $6 billion annually. Timber, natural gas, minerals, and tourism. Strategic military positioning that allowed America to dominate the Pacific and keep Russia in check during the Cold War. Conservative estimates put Alaska's total value at over $1 trillion today. Some say it's closer to $2 trillion when you factor in military and strategic value. Seward wasn't a fool. He was a visionary who understood something critical. Land doesn't just have value today, it has strategic value forever. The deal was so good that Russia spent the next century kicking themselves for selling it. Putin once called it a loss for Russia. Now let's talk Greenland. It's 836,000 square miles, 3 times the size of Texas, bigger than Alaska. It sits at the crossroads of the Arctic, North America, and Europe. It's melting, which means new shipping routes, new fishing grounds, and access to resources that were frozen solid for millennia. If Alaska was the deal of the 19th century, Greenland could be the deal of the 21st. Or it could be the biggest waste of money since Germany's energy plan. 2. This isn't new. America has been trying since 1867. Here's what most people don't know. Trump wasn't the first president to try to buy Greenland. He wasn't even the second. 1867. Right after buying Alaska, Secretary Seward actually floated the idea of buying Greenland and Iceland from Denmark. Denmark said no. Americans were still recovering from Seward's folly backlash, so the idea died quietly. 1946. After World War II, President Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million in gold for Greenland. That's about $1.6 billion today. Why? Because during the war, America built bases there and realized just how valuable the island was for monitoring the Soviet Union. Denmark politely declined again. So when Trump brought it up in 2019, he was actually following a long American tradition of looking at Greenland and thinking, yeah, we need that. The difference is in 2019, people had Twitter, and the memes were absolutely savage. But the geopolitical logic? It's the same as it was in 1946. Actually, it's stronger now. 3. The treasure chest, what's actually under the ice. Okay, so what's actually in Greenland that makes people drool? Let's break down the treasure map. Rare earth elements, the new oil. You know what powers your iPhone, your electric car, your laptop, military drones? Rare earth elements. These are 17 chemical elements with names you can't pronounce, neodymium, dysprosium, europium, that are absolutely critical for modern technology. And here's the problem: China controls 80% of global rare earth production. They have a monopoly. And they've already proven they're willing to weaponize it. In 2010, during a territorial dispute with Japan, China just stopped exporting rare earths to Japan. The message was clear: we control the supply, don't mess with us. America is terrified of this dependency. The Pentagon has called it a critical national security threat. Enter Greenland. The Kvanefjeld deposit in southern Greenland contains one of the largest concentrations of rare earth elements outside of China. We're talking about an estimated $1.5 trillion worth of rare earths, uranium, and zinc. That's not a typo. $1.5 trillion with a T, but there's a catch. Mining rare earths is dirty, complicated, and expensive. The Kvanefjeld project has been stuck in regulatory hell for years because Greenlanders are, understandably, worried about environmental damage and radioactive waste from the uranium that comes with the package. Still, the potential is staggering. Oil and gas, the black gold beneath the ice. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that Greenland's offshore waters could contain 17.5 billion barrels of oil and 148 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. To put that in perspective, that's about as much oil as Nigeria has. It's not Saudi Arabia, but it's absolutely massive. The problem? Drilling in Arctic waters is insanely expensive and dangerous. Remember the Deepwater Horizon disaster? Now imagine that, but in freezing waters, with icebergs, in the dark for half the year. Oil companies have explored Greenland's waters for decades. Shell, ExxonMobil, Chevron, they've all poked around. Most have given up because the costs are just too high with current technology and oil prices. But technology improves, oil prices fluctuate, and climate change is making access easier every single year. The other stuff, gold, rubies, and iron. Don't forget gold deposits across the island. Pink diamonds, yes, really, some of the rarest in the world. Rubies of exceptional quality. Iron ore in massive quantities. Zinc, lead, copper, the list goes on. Mining companies have been circling Greenland like sharks for years, but the infrastructure, non-existent. The weather, brutal. The regulations, tight. The local population, skeptical. But here's where it gets interesting. Climate change is Greenland's unintentional real estate developer. As the ice melts, access to these resources gets easier. New ports become viable. New mines can operate year-round. New routes open up. It's a gold rush waiting to happen. The question is, who's going to control it? 4. The melting ice, climate change as a geopolitical game changer. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the melting ice cap on the island. Greenland is losing about 280 billion tons of ice per year. That's roughly 30 million Olympic swimming pools of water annually pouring into the ocean. The ice sheet is melting 6 times faster than it was in the 1990s. This is obviously terrible news for global sea levels and climate change. Miami, New York, Shanghai, coastal cities worldwide are preparing for the worst. But from a cold, ruthless geopolitical perspective, the melting ice is opening Greenland for business. The Northwest Passage, the new Suez Canal. For centuries, explorers died trying to find a shipping route through the Arctic from Europe to Asia. It was called the Northwest Passage, and it was a death trap of ice, freezing temperatures, and shipwrecks. But now, it's opening up. In 2007, the Northwest Passage was ice-free for the first time in recorded history. By the 2030s, it could be navigable for several months each year. Why does this matter? Because it cuts the shipping distance from Europe to Asia by 40%. Instead of going through the Suez Canal, ships could go over the top of the world. Imagine controlling that route. Imagine the tolls, the economic leverage, the strategic positioning. Right now, the passage goes through Canadian waters, but Greenland sits right at the entrance. Whoever controls Greenland has a say in who uses the passage and how. Fishing grounds, the ocean's new frontier. As the ice melts, fish stocks are moving north. The waters around Greenland are becoming some of the richest fishing grounds on the planet. We're talking billions of dollars in cod, halibut, shrimp, and other seafood. Countries are already fighting over fishing rights. The EU, Norway, Iceland, China, yes, China. Everyone wants a piece. Greenland controls the second-largest exclusive economic zone in the world. That's a lot of fish. That's a lot of money. 5. The military checkmate, Thule Air Base, and the new Cold War. Let's get geopolitical for a second because this is where things get really serious. America already has a massive military presence in Greenland. It's called Thule Air Base, and it's one of the most strategically important installations on the planet. Why Thule matters. Thule sits just 750 miles from the North Pole. It was built in 1951 during the height of the Cold War as an early warning station for Soviet ICBMs flying over the Arctic. Today, Thule is a Space Force installation tracking satellites and space debris, an early warning radar system for ballistic missiles, a refueling station for military aircraft, a monitoring hub for Russian and Chinese Arctic activity. If NORAD had a bodyguard, it would be Thule. And guess what? Russia and China are going all in on the Arctic. Russia's Arctic ambitions. Russia has been building military bases across its Arctic coastline. They have 50-plus military installations in the Arctic, the world's largest fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers, more than 40 ships, Arctic-capable fighter jets stationed at northern bases, regular military exercises simulating Arctic warfare. Putin has made it clear Russia sees the Arctic as its strategic backyard, and they're not shy about defending it. China's near-Arctic state fiction. Now here's where it gets weird. China is nowhere near the Arctic. The closest Chinese territory is 900 miles from the Arctic Circle. But in 2018, China declared itself a near-Arctic state and released an Arctic policy white paper outlining their plans to build a polar Silk Road. What does that mean? It means billions invested in Arctic research stations, attempts to buy mining projects in Greenland blocked by Denmark and the U.S. partnerships with Russia on Arctic shipping routes, building polar-capable icebreakers. China wants in, and when China wants in, they usually find a way. The Great Game, Arctic Edition. What we're seeing is a new Cold War playing out in the Arctic. The players, America, trying to maintain dominance, Russia reclaiming historical territory and resources, China muscling into a region where they have no geographic claim, Canada nervously guarding their northern border, Nordic countries stuck in the middle, and Greenland? It's the ultimate strategic prize, the island that sits at the center of it all. If America doesn't lock down Greenland, someone else will try. And someone else rhymes with Gina and Usia. 6. The price tag. What would Greenland actually cost? All right, let's talk money. Could America actually afford Greenland? And more importantly, would it be worth it? What's a fair price? Estimating Greenland's value is like trying to price the Mona Lisa. How do you put a number on something that's never been sold and probably never will be? But let's try. Some analysts estimate Greenland's total resource value at $1.7 trillion. That includes rare earths, $1.5 trillion. Oil and gas, $100 to $200 billion. Other minerals, $50 to $100 billion. Strategic value, priceless. But nobody pays full retail for undeveloped land. Let's say America offers $200 to $300 billion. That's roughly 20 times what they paid for Alaska, inflation-adjusted. Less than 2 years of the Pentagon's budget, $850 billion annually, a fraction of what was spent on the Afghanistan war, $2.3 trillion. About the same as Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk's combined net worth. Denmark's entire GDP is about $400 billion. A $200 billion offer would be half their entire economy dropped in their lap overnight. That's hard to refuse, economically speaking. But wait, there's more. Cost buying Greenland is just the down payment. Then comes infrastructure, $100 to $200 billion over 20 years. Ports that can handle commercial and military traffic. Roads connecting mining sites. Power grids. Currently, most towns have their own diesel generators. Airports capable of handling large aircraft, telecommunications networks, annual subsidies, $600 million per year. Denmark currently pays this to keep Greenland's government running. America would inherit this obligation. Over 50 years, that's $30 billion. Environmental cleanup, $50 to $100 billion. Any mining or drilling requires massive environmental safeguards. Cleaning up abandoned Cold War sites, there are contaminated military bases, managing climate impact assessments. Total cost. Over 50 years, $500 billion to $1 trillion. Sounds expensive, right? But if the resources are worth $1.7 trillion and the strategic value prevents China or Russia from gaining a foothold, and it secures rare earth independence and it gives control over Arctic shipping routes, suddenly it doesn't sound so crazy, does it? The Alaska comparison. Let's put this in perspective with Alaska. The Alaska purchase price was $7.2 million. That's $150 million today. Greenland estimated purchase price $200 to $300 billion. Alaska size 586,000 square miles. Greenland size 836,000 square miles. Alaska resources $1 to $2 trillion. Greenland resources $1.7 trillion plus. Alaska strategic value high. Greenland strategic value critical. Alaska ROI timeline 50 plus years. Greenland ROI timeline 50 plus years. The Alaska purchase was mocked for decades before people realized it was brilliant. Could Greenland be the same? 7. The Danish dilemma, why they'll never sell. Probably here's the problem. Greenland isn't really Denmark's to sell. The autonomy issue. Greenland has been self-governing since 2009 under the Self-Government Act. They control natural resources, domestic policy, fishing rights, internal affairs. Denmark controls foreign policy, defense, and currency. They use the Danish krone. So technically, Denmark couldn't just sell Greenland even if they wanted to. The Greenlandic people would have to agree. And the people of Greenland, mostly indigenous Inuit, about 89% of the population, have made it pretty clear they're not interested in becoming America's 51st state. Denmark's political nightmare. Even discussing the sale would be political suicide for any Danish government. When Trump's offer became public in 2019, the reaction in Denmark was swift and brutal. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen called it absurd. Danish newspapers ran headlines like, "Is he insane?" Politicians across the spectrum united in outrage. Trump canceled his state visit in a huff. Selling Greenland would be like Britain selling Scotland to Germany, France selling Corsica to Italy, Canada selling Quebec to France. The backlash would be instant, massive, and career-ending. But here's where it gets interesting. Greenland might want independence from Denmark entirely. There's a growing independence movement in Greenland. Younger Greenlanders especially are pushing for full sovereignty. They're tired of being Denmark's colony. Their words, not mine. But here's the catch. Independence is expensive. Greenland's government budget is about $2 billion per year. Denmark provides $600 million of that, nearly a third. Without Danish subsidies, Greenland would face massive budget cuts, economic crisis, need for a new economic partner. Who could that partner be? The options are limited. America has the money, wants the strategic access. China has the money, Denmark and the US are blocking them. EU possible, but complicated. Going it alone, not realistic in the short term. So there could be a scenario where Greenland declares independence from Denmark. Greenland is broke and needs help. America offers a partnership deal. This wouldn't be a purchase. It would be more like long-term base rights, 99-year lease on military bases, exclusive mining agreements, economic development funding, defense guarantees, investment in infrastructure. In exchange, America gets de facto control without the political nightmare of buying Greenland, access to resources, military positioning, blocking China and Russia. It's not impossible, just very, very complicated. 8. What do Greenlanders actually want? Let's talk about the 57,000 people who actually live there. You know, the people whose home we're discussing like it's a real estate transaction. The demographics: 89% Inuit, indigenous Greenlandic people, 11% Danish and other Europeans, average age 34 years, language Greenlandic Kalaallisut, with Danish as second language, main industries, fishing, 90% of exports, tourism, small-scale mining. The independence question polls show that about 68% of Greenlanders support eventual independence from Denmark, but when you ask, do you want to become part of America? The number drops to about 20 to 25%. Greenlanders want self-determination and respect for indigenous rights, economic development without environmental destruction, cultural preservation of Inuit traditions, partnership, not domination. The younger generation is especially wary of trading one colonial relationship with Denmark for another with America or China. The environmental concerns. Many Greenlanders are watching their island melt in real time. They see traditional hunting grounds disappearing, permafrost thawing, destabilizing buildings. Coastal erosion threatening towns, ecosystems changing rapidly. They're skeptical of big mining projects that promise jobs but threaten the environment. The Kvanefjeld rare earth mine has been a political hot potato for exactly this reason. So any deal would have to address environmental protections, Greenlander sovereignty and participation, economic benefits flowing to local communities, cultural preservation. It's not impossible, but it requires treating Greenlanders as partners, not assets to be acquired. 9. The 2025 reality check. What's actually happening? So where are we now? Is America actually trying to buy Greenland? Not officially, but quietly, behind the scenes, America has been massively increasing its presence. What's changed since 2019? New U.S. consulate. In 2020, America reopened its consulate in Nuuk, Greenland's capital, for the first time since 1953. This isn't just symbolic, it's a strategic foothold. $12 million aid package. The U.S. committed $12 million for economic development in Greenland. Not huge money, but it's a start. Military upgrades. America is investing $300 million to upgrade Thule Air Base with new radar systems, improved runways, enhanced satellite tracking, better accommodations for personnel. Mining cooperation. The U.S. government is actively helping Greenland develop its rare earth mining sector through technical assistance and financing, blocking China. When Chinese companies tried to bid on airport construction projects in Greenland, Denmark and the U.S. tag-teamed to block them. Denmark ended up financing the airports themselves to keep China out. The great power competition. This isn't about a real estate deal anymore. It's about influence. America is offering economic development and security. China is offering investment and infrastructure when allowed. Russia is just watching and building up its own Arctic presence. Denmark is trying to keep control while acknowledging Greenland's autonomy. The game is already being played. The question is, who wins? 10. Final thoughts. The deal that might never happen, but should. Here's the bottom line. Greenland is the most undervalued strategic asset on Earth. It's Alaska 2.0, but bigger, richer, and more important in today's geopolitical landscape. Could America afford it? Yes. Even at $300 billion, it's less than half a year of military spending. Would it be worth it? Probably. The resources alone could pay for the purchase. The strategic value, priceless. Will it actually happen? Not in the traditional sense. Nobody's cutting a check for Greenland. But what we're likely to see is increased U.S. investment and presence, closer economic and security ties, possible Greenlandic independence with heavy American involvement, a de facto U.S. sphere of influence without a formal purchase. The bigger picture. Whether America buys Greenland or not, the Arctic is heating up, literally and geopolitically. The next 50 years will see new shipping routes changing global trade, a scramble for Arctic resources, military competition between superpowers, climate refugees as the region becomes more habitable. Greenland sits at the center of all of it. Countries that ignore the Arctic will regret it. Countries that position themselves now will reap the benefits for the next century. The lessons. Strategic vision beats short-term thinking. Seward bought Alaska when everyone called him crazy. History proved him right. Geography is destiny. Greenland's location alone makes it invaluable. Climate change is reshaping geopolitics. What was frozen and worthless is now accessible and priceless. Resource independence is national security. Rare earths aren't just about iPhones, they're about military supremacy. The great powers are already positioning. America, China, Russia, they all see what's coming. And maybe, just maybe in 50 years, historians will look back and say, why didn't we do the Alaska deal again when we had the chance? Thanks for watching. If this breakdown of frozen geopolitics made you think, smash that subscribe button. Next video, why China is building artificial islands in the South China Sea and why the U.S. Navy is losing sleep over it. Drop a comment. Should America make a move on Greenland? Or is this the dumbest imperial fantasy since Napoleon invaded Russia in winter? I read every single one. And hey, if you learned something today, even if you disagree, hit that like button. It tells YouTube that people actually care about whether Denmark sells an island the size of Mexico. See you in the next one. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe start investing in icebreakers.